Hey Bat fans, Luke here, ready to bat chat about another Bat book, and with it being Halloween, I kind of wanted to sit there and really pick a Bat story that really did fit, the Halloween motif. And after kind of looking through the collection, this one was kind of a no-brainer, to be honest. Um, in looking at the many Bat books that are out there, there are some that are just kind of labeled as kind of like the staple, the must-haves that gotta be in your library. Thinking like Year One, The Man Who Laughs, Long Halloween, No Man's Land, Nightfall, all 3 volumes, Black Mirror. The list goes on and on. And even kind of like in the Elseworlds tales, there are some of those quintessentials, must-haves. Most notably, probably thinking The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller. Even though they're Elseworlds, they still should hold, if you want to even call that an Elseworld, maybe just kind of out of continuity. Probably might be the best label. But even though there are many good Bat books that are kind of labeled, Elseworlds, that shouldn't really kind of discriminate them from being kind of like staple Bat books. And this leads me into this one in particular. And this one we're going to talk about is Elseworlds Batman Volume 2. And it really does collect 3 actual stories, which comprehensively is actually one complete one if you look at it. And these 3 stories that are collected in this volume are Batman and Dracula, Red Rain, Batman Bloodstorm, and Batman Crimson Mist. Pretty much what you have here throughout is written by Doug Moench and art by Kelly Jones. Obviously, the Kelly Jones art should be screaming right at you because of the blonde Batman ears. And Moench and Jones's take on Batman really does lens really well into this Batman story that we're going to dive into again. Just comprehensively, we'll just call this the Red Rain story. And what I mean by Red Rain, it's just like as you see it, this is Batman as a vampire. Just a great story. And Moench and Kelly Jones, their take on Batman lends itself perfectly for this type of story. Much like we see in Snyder today, just really lends himself to that horror motif and brings it perfectly in with Batman. And I heard this many places before, and that's something I really do believe wholeheartedly in that Batman is the one character that really lends itself to that dark horror type of storytelling just because of the core characteristics of the Batman character, and actually what he tries to do with the evil out there is actually instill fear. And the Batman character, again, it lends itself so perfectly with the horror motif. And Moench and Jones's take on Batman really does just accentuate that horror vibe, and it's just a perfect pairing for it. And you would have saw Moench and Jones way back in the 90s, circa Nightfall. Actually, I think Jones during Nightfall just did the covers, I think, on the main Batman title, and then he jumped on, I think, after, if I remember correctly. But yeah, this story in this book, it's volume 2. There's 3 volumes in the Elseworlds collection. I did a video review of volume 1. Don't know if I'll do volume 3 yet. Kind of look at it, but volume 2, oh man, this is as perfect as you could almost make it. And this really does. I mean, this has to be in your collection. And you will have seen some folks out there that kind of get these 3 stories separately. Red Rain, Bloodstorm, and Crimson Mist. But what I love about this Elseworlds collection, it's those 3 stories in one comprehensive book. And oh man, is it just the perfect way to read this. If you're going into this, I would highly recommend this is one you read from start to finish, and I think you get the most bang out of your buck if you really do just read it. I don't want to say in one sitting, but as much as one sitting as you possibly can, rather than breaking up into 3, because this is a complete story. And that's why I love how this is collected into one trade paperback, is that from the beginning, from the start of it, at Red Rain all the way through Crimson Mist, this Red Rain saga, if we kind of consider it, is a complete story. And while each 3 volumes is like their own kind of separate story, this trade just brings it together so perfectly. And right off the bat, it's a very visceral take on the Batman character. It's just so good. Everything about this is great, from the storytelling to the dialogue to the characters to the art itself. The art is great. It's just, again, it's just Moenchen Jones' take on Batman just really does. It's just a perfect fit for this type of theme, and it's just accentuated so well. The pencils, again, it's just Jones has his distinct way of drawing his art, but it's so darn good. And this story, it lends itself so perfectly to not only the horror motif, but the vampire angle within the story as well. The shadows are done perfectly. The colors are dark and accentuate the red. It kind of accentuates the blood part of the vampire take, and it's just so good. This is a book that I would say definitely not for younger readers. It's a very mature take on storytelling. And if you're looking at a vampire story, the vampirism angle of the story, it does lend itself to a more mature reader. And this one in particular is definitely one you definitely don't want little kids kind of going into. It talks a lot about, you see a lot about prostitution and brothels, violence, the way vampires actually go after humans in this is very graphic, to the point where they're ripping the throats out of victims in this. And then there's one take where Dracula is actually attacking one of the, as you kind of see, that's Selena. Again, mature to say the least, as she's getting attacked by one of the vampires. If I can remember, and there's one of the, Mr. Creech, I believe, is a character. You see him kind of pulling out his own intestines and heart right there. It's very violent, and then there's one scene in particular, one of the vampires is actually attacking, there's one of the victims there. And there's another scene, and it's kind of like reminds me of, I can't remember one in particular in the movie, where one girl is getting attacked by like 4 vampires at once, and they're serving her up like a buffet, and they're just feeding on her, and it's really violent. But there's one scene in here, and I can't remember what page it's in, where the vampire actually eats the face off one of his victims. It's really insane. I really wish I can get to, I know it's in the second story because it deals with the gangsters, the mob, but it's definitely one. Again, there's Victor Saz actually getting ripped by Batman in this, and I don't want to spoil too much, but it's good. But again, this is one for definitely mature reader in this. And again, rightfully so. I mean, it's a vampire story. If you're gonna really do a good Batman or vampire story, I mean, the vampirism in itself, the true vampirism, it's graphic and violent. It is what it is, to say the least. I can't remember. I can't find that one in particular scene. Either one where the kind of like the prostitute is basically getting munched on by like 4 or 5 vampires. And he actually has the part where she actually has like the apple in the mouth, like you would like a pig on a buffet type of thing. It's neither here nor there. And what I like about this too, the storytelling, it starts Bruce Wayne. You see him actually being listed by this sort of vampire going up against Dracula initially, and you see the slow development of Bruce Wayne until the very end, where it's the Bruce Wayne persona is pretty much gone, and it's pure Batman as a vampire. And what I love about these 3 stories, again, collected as a whole, the character development in this is just done to a T. You really see before your eyes in one complete story how you see Batman, Bruce Wayne, go from where he is to the very end, to the far right, or far, not to say far right, the far other side of the spectrum of who he is and what his ideals is. This is initially starting up Bruce Wayne wholeheartedly being against murder and death. And you see at the very end, this is someone who embraces it fully, to get after his mission of ridding the crime element of Gotham. But you see it, it's developed and executed so well to a point where at the end you kind of see why Bruce does what he does. He really has no choice. And the best part about this is that initially how you see Batman about halfway through come to a crux in the story of where he kind of has to, with Joker there, actually at the very end of the second story. And major spoiler in this part. He runs across Joker, and it's a point where he's staving off the urge for blood. And he's actually supplemented by this blood plasma that you kind of get in the first part of the story. And it comes to the end, he's fighting off the urge because the plasma effect is kind of losing its effect over time. And he's kind of the urge to go toward actually consuming blood at this point. He's fighting it off, and it comes to the end where he really can't do it anymore, and he has Joker, and Joker's even baiting him. He's like, "Come on, do it. You know you want to, cross that line. You know you can't fight the urge for blood, for death, for killing. Let me be the one." And he does. He succumbs to it, and that's ultimately his downfall. Not only does he cross that line now of killing kind of being sort of like the status quo of how he does it, but it's the blood that he takes in that is the Joker. And then after he takes in the Joker's blood, it's a slow demise of the character, and it's just so well executed. The first one, it's great. It actually has Dracula. It kind of sets things up. The second story it's Joker teaming up with the local vampire nest that still survived the first part of the story, and they're bringing in the mob, the crime element. They kind of build its ranks, and it's an epic story at the end where Batman, through Alfred and Commissioner Gordon, has to make a sacrifice. Don't want to spoil that, but then you come back to the third part of the story, in that the rogues are kind of running amok to the extreme, and then Alfred and Commissioner Gordon have to make a choice to bring the Batman back, and in doing so, it's a very tough decision that has major implications how it kind of wraps up. Just a great story from start to finish. The only thing I would kind of critique this, and I'm giving this a 5 out of 5. You have to have this. This is so great. And again, for Halloween, it's a great Batman story to read. And if you can do it in one sitting, if not in 1 or 2 days, I think you'll get the most effect out of it. Because again, it's the character development in this. And it all kind of links together so perfectly well. But the only thing I want to nitpick about this, why Joker's brought into the fold in the second story, does feel kind of cliched a bit, but still, how Joker is intertwined to the story and his impact on the vampire Red Rain Batman, integral and phenomenal. Again, this is 5 out of 5. You have to get this book. Additionally, if you're interested in more, you can kind of continue this kind of era of Batman storytelling by going back to Convergence. There's 2 stories, Wonder Woman 1, issue 1, and number 2, as you kind of see the Red Rain era come back into play with Diana going up against the Joker. And also pick up Swamp Thing issue 1 and 2, kind of has the Batman vampire Red Rain circa storytelling kind of come into play. Again, this is 5 out of 5. Awesome. This is a must-have. So anyway, happy Halloween. Hit me up in the comments below if you read this, either this trade, which is pretty decent, and $25 for those 3 stories, definitely worth it. And if you read these 3 stories, hit me up in the comments below. We will definitely bat chat about this one and go from there. So, I hope you have a great Halloween. Love to get feedback on this story because this was good. And then, until next video, take care.